Thank you, Lascan Corla, and thank you, deputies. And I will immediately respond to Deputy Barry's question about increases in carbon tax and, where should that money go? So it's government policy that any increase in carbon tax should be ring-fenced and should go directly towards alleviating any negative effects on people who can't afford the increases in the price of energy. And that means that half of all the increases in carbon taxes should go towards retrofitting energy efficiency for homes. A third goes towards increases in welfare, and the remainder goes towards increasing the income of people in farming. And I think that is right. It's also government policy that the distribution and the transmission of electricity should remain in state hands. It's a natural monopoly. There is major investment and operation and activity from state-owned companies in the generation of electricity in Ireland. Around 40% of electricity generated in Ireland is generated by state-owned companies. So I want to thank deputies for raising these important matters and for allowing us time to discuss them today. Clearly, the current situation, where we're witnessing significant increases in international gas prices and their knock-on effects in the Irish market, is a matter of serious concern to the Government. The Government fully accepts that recent electricity and gas price increases will make it difficult for consumers to meet their bills, especially in the current economic environment. Today, in speaking on our amending motion, I will deal with substantive elements of government policy and household supports for energy costs. First, I'll set out the global developments that have affected Irish energy prices. I will then set out for deputies the functions of the independent regulator, the Commission for Regulation of Utilities, the CRU, in relation to these matters, including in highly relevant activities in consumer protection and monitoring competition. And then, lastly, I will set out for you the amendment that I've tabled to this motion. So as part of describing our amendment, I'll outline what government is doing in terms of providing significant supports for household energy costs, both in terms of energy efficiency and welfare supports. It's important to recognise that these price increases are not government or even regulatory decisions. This is because price regulation ended many years ago. Suppliers compete with each other on prices, and they set their own prices accordingly, as you'd expect. So first, let me outline what has been happening in world energy prices. Increases to wholesale energy prices following rises in international gas prices have been the principal driver of these increases. These increases have been felt across Europe. They're not just an Irish phenomenon. Those prices reflect the costs that suppliers face, including wholesale gas costs. The most immediate factor affecting electricity prices in Ireland is the upward trend in international gas prices. In Europe, wholesale natural gas prices have been on an upward curve since the second half of 2020. And this feeds directly through to retail electricity prices, as the wholesale price of electricity correlates strongly with the price of gas. Various commentators, including the International Energy Agency, have stated that both demand and supply factors have contributed to a tightening of the European gas market. Such factors including increased demand due to post-COVID recovery, supply constraints in Europe and increased demand in Asia. European gas reserves are low, and what was used during winter 2020 was not replenished in the summer months. The ongoing need to replenish these reserves means higher gas imports, and this has fostered competition between Europe and Asia for supplies, and thus a further increase in gas prices. As previously stated, all European markets are experiencing these price increases. Deputies will further appreciate that we face additional costs due to our geographic location, our fossil fuel dependency, the small scale of the Irish market, and our low population density, and of course exchange rate fluctuations. I'll now turn to the regulatory role of the CRU. Deputies should be aware that the CRU, the independent energy regulator, has a wide range of economic and customer protection responsibilities in this area. And as part of its statutory code, the CRU has consumer protection functions and it monitors energy retail markets to ensure that competition continues to develop to benefit the consumer. The CRU also oversees non-price aspects of competition and has taken and continues to take steps to increase transparency and consumer engagement in retail markets. This includes, for example, developing various codes of practice, setting out customers' rights, and found in the Supplier's Handbook. Additionally, the CRU certify price comparison websites, they lead the smart metering rollout, and they participate in initiatives like the supplier-led voluntary energy engage code, where suppliers will not disconnect a customer who is engaging with them. I note that the CRU recently appeared before the Joint Committee of the Oireachtas, to whom it is accountable. And thirdly, let me now turn to our amendments to the motion. The amendment acknowledges that international energy prices have been increasing and that these increases are having knock-on impacts on households. The amendment also asks that the Dáil Éireann note that Ireland faces particular challenges in this regard, as we are a price taker on international markets, and that Irish electricity and gas prices have historically been higher than other EU countries due to long-standing drivers such as geographical isolation, dispersed population, fossil fuel dependency and small market scale. The amendment upholds the Government's conviction that the best long-term approach for Ireland is to insulate consumers from volatility on international wholesale energy markets, to invest in energy efficiency and renewable energy, and to expand interconnection with Europe and neighbouring markets, and to deepen the internal market in energy. The amendment notes that carbon pricing is an essential element of any credible plan to decarbonise the economy, and furthermore, Government's increasing ambition for renewable electricity to reach at least 70% by 2030 and the commitment to greenhouse gas emissions reduction of 51% by the end of the decade. I want to highlight the parts of the amendment that deal with the extensive government supports that are in place. The amendment further affirms the government's support for energy efficiency, where supports are considerable with a total retrofit budget of €280 million. This funding will mean that more households can receive free energy efficiency upgrades, making their homes warmer, healthier and cheaper to run, in line with the programme for government. The amendment states that Government's commitment via the Government's Project 2040 National Development Plan provides for an expanded investment well in excess of €1 billion in retrofit between now and 2025. The amendment upholds support for a deepening competition between suppliers as an important means of exerting downward pressure on electricity prices. Customers can and should ensure that they are availing of the best offer in the market by switching supplier or renegotiating with their existing supplier. The amendment further affirms the Government's continuing commitment to protect the most vulnerable through extensive supports for household energy costs via welfare schemes, and also the commitment to review the implementation of the strategy to combat energy poverty by the end of the year. The fuel allowance is just one of a range of income supports paid by the Department of Social Protection, which includes general social welfare schemes, the Living Alone increases to support those living alone and at a higher risk of poverty, and the Household Benefits Package. On the 27th of September, the Minister for Social Protection announced the start of the National Fuel Scheme for the 2021-2022 season. A budget of €292 million has been set aside for the upcoming season to pay an estimated 370,000 households. The fuel allowance is available to long-term social welfare recipients and amounts to a payment of €28 per week for 28 weeks, a total of €784 each year from October to April. In launching the winter fuel allowance on the 26th of September, the Minister for Social Protection noted that heating costs are a concern for many, that households have seen their bills increase, and that this would be an important factor as Budget 2022 negotiations continue. The Household Benefits Package consists of a set of allowances which help with the costs of running a household. It includes allowances towards covering electricity or gas costs. Recipients, the majority of whom are pensioners, are paid €35 per month. The Department of Social Protection will spend approximately €195 million this year on the HHB for over 470,000 customers. Targeted supports are also provided under the Supplementary Welfare Allowance Scheme, exceptional needs payments and urgent needs payments, and they may be made to help meet an essential one-off cost which an applicant is unable to meet out of his or her own resources. I'd like to state that all of the funds raised by increases in the carbon tax have been ring-fenced to protect those most exposed to higher fuel and energy costs, and they will be allocated as follows: 1/3 to ensure the increase in carbon tax is progressive through targeted social welfare and other increases to prevent fuel poverty and to ensure a just transition; 1/2 to fund a socially progressive national retrofitting programme targeting all homes, but with a particular emphasis on the Midlands region and on social and low-income tenancies; and the remainder to allocate funding to a REPS2 programme to encourage and incentivise farmers to farm in a greener and more sustainable way. Finally, and importantly, the amendment further commits that the Government will provide additional social welfare support in the budget to protect the most vulnerable against fuel price increases. I'd now like to conclude by stating that the Government is acutely aware of the financial challenges faced by households due to these price rises, and this Government is serious about practical supports. As I've highlighted, Government has long provided and will continue to provide practical supports for those struggling with their energy costs. The Government continues to allocate significant funding to these practical supports via the welfare system and through energy efficiency grants and retrofitting. Thank you.